Hi, Christa McCune. Okay, so here we are. This is another month. Actually, it's like fifth week on the row, right? So um, let's take a look what we got here.
You poor. You mean he dropped dead right in this chair? You poor. You mean he dropped dead right in this chair?
Well, what I can see is that pretty much the same problems that there were before, they're still here. I don't see any real fixes because the walk has to be very sturdy. It has to have four poses, and those four poses have to be proper. And I don't see that. I can still see feet sliding all the time, and there is no weight shifting in his hips. So not much difference, if any, from previous submissions. On her side, well, I can still see partial animation, right? So I this is like a week, just like I said, week 5, and she's still partially moving. Like the torso and hips are not moving. So hips are not moving, torso not moving, head is not moving, arms are moving. But that's is what is making it so stiff, because nobody in reality can do that. Look, she's just moving her arms. So how you can expect something good out of it if you don't uh, fix the that partial animation? Everything has to move, right? So when you're finished with one pose, key all controls, and then when you start new pose, start with the hips. Move the hips a little bit. What you think it would be a right direction for the next pose, right? But with that, with moving hips, pretty much all upper body would move a little bit, and then adjust everything else to get the pose you want. You see that? You know, only this arm and this leg is, and head, of course. But what about torso? What about hips? What about right leg? And what about right arm? So there is no point of going any further with her if you don't fix these isolated animations. Here she just goes up and hips are completely frozen. How would she go up? What power is lifting her up? She has to use certain muscles. That means that she has to get yourself up, probably with the use of legs, right? But I don't see any movement in the legs. She's moving her torso, but not shoulders, not head. How is it possible to move hips and not head? And then once when you have all these poses correct, where everything moves, then you have to go back and you have to build in those breakdowns that I was explaining at one point. Was it milestone 2 or milestone 3 of, of last month when we were working together, right? So you cannot have just keys, because it doesn't matter how beautiful keys you might have. If you don't have breakdowns, how to get from one key to another, then it's still gonna be movement, still gonna be stiff, because with the breakdowns, we are actually creating some flexibility into a character, right? To get breakdowns, the best way is to switch your animation into graph editor into auto mode. So let's say you have a one key here. Let's say you have a one key here, and then you have another key there, and then you have another key there. I'm talking about these keys here being on the timeline, right? And when you are in step mode, of course, now this key is being held for as many frames as you want. And then next one. We are having trouble saving your sketches. Please wait a couple of seconds and try to sketch again. Really? What? Couple of seconds? Okay, so here we have a key, another key, another key on timeline. There is maybe 7 frames in between, maybe here 12, 13, 15, I don't know. So when your keys are working properly, right? Because first what you were supposed to be building for the blocking stage, just major. Let's say this is a major one, maybe this one is a major one, and so on and on, right? That is part of the blocking. After blocking is done, then you add more keys. And when that part is done, then you switch to auto mode to get in-betweens. Now you're getting in-betweens. And then what you can do here is you choose some of these in-betweens, and as you move it, that in-between became breakdown, right? Let's say you chose this one, you move it, let's say, her arm is, instead of going straight, you don't want it to go straight. Usually we don't want anything straight to happen. So if you want some arc to happen, right, then you pull this hand from here, what Maya would give you, that will give you Maya, right, as an in-between. Then you just pull it and put it here. So suddenly the arm will go into this arc, right? And that's how this in-between becomes breakdown. And so on and on. Between 2 regular keys, there should be at least 1 breakdown. Sometimes when the movement is more complicated, you need maybe 2, 3. Sometimes actually all frames would be breakdowns. Because the movement is so complicated that we cannot just let Maya connect it, because Maya is not really artistically capable of that, right? If you have some really jumping or some kung fu fighting or complicated dancing or something, then yes, you will need more breakdown in order to get from one key into the other. So that would be about her, right? So she has to have additional breakdowns at least in order to start moving nicely. You cannot forget about anticipations. You cannot forget about moving holds. That all has to be installed in order for this to look realistic and just like somebody's being over there and being surprised. That's how it's supposed to look, right? Now let's go back to the walk of this guy. You see, as I'm doing this scrubbing on the timeline from frame to frame, this foot is going forward and this foot is going forward. That is not possible. Now, if you want to lift this foot in order to make a step, right? You have to lift it at one point. I don't see this leg. Oh, it's not really lifted. It's kind of just slides the heel on the ground and then goes in this direction, and then after that goes in that direction. And I was talking about it. Why is he doing this zigzag with the foot, with the leg, but it was never addressed? So when we are standing, just like this guy is standing, we cannot have our foot that is behind. We cannot have it on the on the heel with the toes up. It just that would be really painful in a lower leg. Right? So in if you want him to stand here like this, you have to put him into the flat-footed position with both feet. And now in order to start, now I'm going to draw on every frame, although of course there should be timing applied, and these poses, sketches that I'm doing, they should be spread a bit to give more time between frames, between keys. But it's easier for me to actually draw like that. So in order for him to start moving, he would have to do some anticipation. In this case, maybe a little bit of squash. So he goes a bit down with his hips, maybe like, oh, I erased wrong. Sketch. Okay, so here he is. Hips are here. That is important. Now he goes into the little squash. You see the hips are going down. This leg with a bend a bit. This one too. That would put him a little bit down all across. So now this is anticipation, right? And now he should go into the, well, contact pose. Now you see, that's the thing. When we are walking, we are going through these 4 poses of contact, down, passing, and up. Contact down, passing up. Contact down, passing up. But when we are animating, just as you're doing right now, first what you should do is contacts. Right? So if you have a 1 step, then you make 2 contacts pretty much. If you're making him walking across the room all the way, then you do as many contacts as you need to get him from point A to point B. Once when you're done with the contacts, then you go and you make passing poses. See, not down, but passing poses as a second. Why? Because it's easy to figure out where that passing pose should come. It should be right in between 2 contact poses, right? Now, when you do all passing poses, now you can go and make down pose. Now, down pose, again, will be easy to figure out because it's going to be in the middle between, well, contact and passing. Except that hips will be actually pushed more down because that should be the lowest pose. That's where the name comes from, down pose. And when you have all down poses, then you go and make finally up poses, and they got right there in between passing pose and new contact with the opposite leg, right? That would be as a number 4. So this is the order of poses that's supposed to be done when you're making walk. So here, when he's starting to walk, right, he goes into squash in anticipation, but that is kind of like a down pose over here what we have. So now we're gonna go and we're gonna make contact pose. But now, why is he going this way if he's gonna land here? If you're planning to land his foot here, then he has to go that way and back foot. The toes are supposed to stay where they were on the very first frame. Toes are staying where they are, only heel is going up, right? Front leg straight, heel down, toes up. The hip supposed to be right in the middle between the legs, because contact pose is or should be the most balanced pose, right? So now when you have this contact, then you go and you make another contact. Of course, the character should never step with a flat foot. The contact poses are with a heel and toes are always up. Now when you have all contact poses, then you go and you have to make passing poses, as we were saying there, right? Well, that means that this supporting leg will be where it landed on contact, except it's going to be flat now. The hips, you see, you have to move hips over this supporting leg. Move it in order to shift the weight of upper body to keep balance, because you can't lift foot up if the upper body is right in the middle. You just can't, right? So for passing pose, you have to move this hips on the side in order to lift the foot. And between this passing and the previous contact, it will come down pose, right, where the foot will be flat down. The back foot will be only on toes, kind of like a peeling off the ground, right? With the heel going up. Toes can be almost on the same place where they were on the contact, but the heel is kind of peeling off the ground. But what's important is that the hips are going down, and not just down, but they're going also towards the passing pose, because in passing pose the hips are the most on the one side or the other side, depends which step you're making, right? So the character, if you're looking from front, hips will always go like this, and that snake thing you will see also if you will be looking those hips from the top, from a drone. The hips are going that way, because in order to lift this foot up, we have to move hips here, and in order to lift this foot up, we have to move hips there. And that constant moving of hips left and right is what is actually giving us capability of lifting the foot off the ground. So there cannot be slide like you have here, where the foot slides. How this foot can slide forward if this foot is up in the air? So this is completely unrealistic, because the hips are right in the middle between 2 feet. So yes, that would be perfect balanced pose if both feet are on the ground. But in order to lift one foot, in this case this one, we have to move these hips on the side. Again, right, moving on the side, and then it would work. And that's pretty much the nutshell of your walk. Because look, here you are lifting this foot. Oh yeah, both feet are moving. That's completely impossible. But you see how character is leaning on one side at a moment when actually this foot should be getting off the ground. Yeah, you can't do that if the whole weight of upper body is over that leg. We have to move hips on the other side, weight shifting. And notice how here so much is moving, but actually this part is not moving. So yes, the whole, yeah, look how that is, everything is sliding. So everything has to be reconstructed. You have to start with again, contacts, All contacts, and then passing poses, and then down, and then up poses. You see how he's sliding. See that foot. You see how much he's moving here with the head, but nothing here. Well, that's again isolated animation where he should, in order to jump back again. So he comes down, and then again he does frozen hips. He moves, from this pose where he actually sees the animal, right? He has to go into the squash, and then he has to jump. Ah! And now this one can maybe go down. While this one is going up, and then this one would land on the straight leg. Straight leg here. And then it would go down into down pose, squash. And then finally he can recover into the pose. As he looking, the animale. Right, so anticipation from starting from this, right, when he sees it, anticipation, and then jump. Of course that jump would happen, I did it on the same place, but he should jump a little bit back, like if he would jump maybe like 2 feet back or so, right, because he wants to get the distance between this monster here and his feet, right? Again, you're lifting here, foot up, without moving hips, so you just can't do it. This foot isn't moving, sliding on the ground. All right, so that will be pretty much what I have to say. And well, actually, I did always, went over all of this through the previous month, but somehow these things are still here, lingering around, and we just cannot make step in good direction unless we fix those things before we move on. Right? Okay, that will be all for now. Thank you.